Creative Assembly have drip-fed us information about Total War Warhammer 40,000 for quite a while, but they recently did a livestream where we got to see a massive number of new features coming to battles when Total War meets the grimdark future. So let's take a look at 12 brand new features coming to battles in 40k. So the first and most obvious change is the addition of cover to the battle maps. This allows your units to position themselves behind various obstacles, such as sandbags, ruins, and even craters formed over the course of the battle. Doing so makes them harder to hit for enemy ranged, allowing them to get off shots a lot safer than if they were in the open. Cover is of course directional, so if enemies are on the flanks or even above you, it will be a lot less effective. Different types of cover also offer you different levels of protection, so a broken wall may only offer minor protection, but a tall sandbag emplacement may offer you a lot more. And the effects of this did seem to be simulated based on the actual layout of the cover. Weapons can also penetrate cover based on what the cover is and what weapons are being fired at it. And lastly, cover can be destroyed by certain weapons, abilities, and more. All of this adds up to make the more ranged focused combat of the battles a lot more strategic than just shooting at each other in open fields, as Warhammer 3 ranged units often do. It will no longer be a matter of whoever has the best ranged units win, and you'll need to use cover and positioning to actually take the battle. Going hand in hand with cover, we have the new Fog of War system, and this seems to be a lot more aggressive than the system in Warhammer 3. It will now be a lot harder to see units as they approach, with all the cover and obstacles obscuring the view of your units. Equally, cover will allow you to hide units from enemy view for a lot longer, allowing you to lure them into traps before they know what hits them. Of course, this is all put in place since the combat is much more focused on ranged, so being able to spot and shoot at enemy units immediately would turn things chaotic extremely quickly. Combine this with the battle maps that we've seen having a lot more verticality and set decoration, making it harder to see, and positioning has never been more important in a Total War game. This is a small one, but as I always say, small touches are how you know that the team cares about what they are working on. As units take damage over the course of battle, they'll start to show it on their models, and the exact cosmetic changes will vary based on what's been hitting them. Bullet holes on the side of your tanks, burns and blood on your infantry, the potential really is endless and will help tell the story of the battle based on what survives. Are most players likely to even bother looking at this? Probably not. Do I love small touches like this and think cosmetically changing units based on what they've been hit by is extremely cool? Absolutely. Now for one of the biggest changes, and that is the potential for units to carry a large number of different weapons. It seems like you may be able to equip different loadouts and put on different units, so I'm hoping that means it connects to the campaign and how you recruit / upgrade your units, but we've seen nothing of the campaign so far. Regardless, units with access to multiple weapons will swap them automatically based on what they're shooting at. They will have one primary weapon which will be their go-to for everything, and then swap them out based on certain parameters. This seems to be based on what they're shooting at alongside their positioning and distance to target. So they may swap to their plasma weapons to attack high armor targets, or flamers to mow down infantry that gets too close, or grenades to break up enemy formations in cover. The potential here really is nearly endless, but the fact it's automatic does leave a lot of room for future frustration. If you don't perform the exact right song and dance to summon the correct weapon, you could end up with a unit uselessly firing at targets it will never kill. They do stress that they're continually refining this, so hopefully it won't be the case, but it never hurts to be cautious. Regardless, this is an extremely cool change that allows you to build armies and units around versatility, rather than having them be useless if you're not going against the exact right unit types to capitalize on their speciality. Another quick change, but units will all have unlimited ammo. It makes sense given that almost every unit will shoot something, so running out of ammo would grind battles to a halt. But it still does call into question balance, since ranged units have always been balanced around running out of ammo to keep them in check. I'm sure that they're aware of this, and from the battles we've seen, they seem to last a decent duration, so presumably damage rates and health have been adjusted to keep things balanced and ensure battles don't end in seconds once people start shooting. It will be less about taking out key targets immediately with ranged, and more about ensuring you have the superior positioning to keep units firing constantly on the targets that matter all battle long. It'll be a fun new challenge to get used to, and I will choose to be cautiously optimistic. The biggest new change is the new engine, and honestly it is beyond about damn time. There is a bunch of changes they mentioned that I'm going to lump in here, so forgive me if I do a bit of a lightning round. Basically, every single unit on the battle map will shoot something, potentially at the same time, so the number of projectiles on the screen and gumph, which is the technical term for muzzle flashes, smoke, etc. created when firing, will be at an all-time high. The sheer level of detail that will be on display will be truly insane, so battles should be something to behold. Ranged units all have a series of actions when given an order to attack, rather than the awkward shuffle of Warhammer 3. They will position, aim, fire whilst managing recoil to keep their fire rate in check, then reload once they empty their magazines. This creates introduce a tempo to battles where you can move based on enemy reload rates and use breaks in the action to your advantage if you can nail timing it perfectly. Any stage of this process can be interrupted by movement orders or attacking enemies, including how many rounds are left in the mag. They said they are toying with the idea of idle units reloading but haven't decided yet, and I really hope they go for it. It would suck to have a unit stood off to the side recovering, only for it to shoot once and have to reload the moment you get it back in combat. Suppression is a new feature that all ranged units will be able to make use of in some capacity. Basically, it slows enemy fire rate and movement speed based on how many enemies are shooting at them, giving you a great way to keep higher power enemies in check, even if you can't take them down immediately. Flanking will now be more rewarding for ranged units, dealing more damage to morale and HP when shooting enemies in the backs and sides. Units will also now fire more reliably whilst in melee. They sometimes do this in Warhammer 3, but it's very inconsistent, and in 40k it will be a lot more important to give some units half a chance to survive once they enter melee. High firepower units like tanks will now make use of sweeping fire to hit entire enemy units, rather than focusing on single entities at a time. And lastly, optimization is something they are aware of and will focus on more as they get closer to release. Given the abysmal state of Warhammer 3 on launch, I think I speak for everyone when I say thank the Emperor for that, and please do actually focus on it, don't just say that you are going to and then don't. Another mechanical rework is reserves, and this is the 40k version of reinforcements. Rather than deploying 40 units at once or having them trickle in as the battle goes on, you are now able to have a lot more control over what you deploy and when. You can decide how much of your force to bring in the battle at the start, then with the reserves menu, you will be able to call in reinforcements, and these will enter the map in the traditional sense, or through more destructive means, such as drop pods, and this will depend on the unit and their ability to survive such an entrance. Reserves will come from both your fleet and planetary armies, so you should always have plenty of units at your disposal. Presumably more options and methods of reinforcement will be available based on your faction and units, but we'll have to wait and see. There was also a number of abilities shown, and these were divided into bombardments and army abilities. Bombardments seem to be based on your surroundings, so any cannons on the planet or your fleet orbiting above, and whatever it's been equipped with. We saw 3 in the form of a warhead, bombing run, and a land strike, aka orbital laser. As for the army abilities, they showed a defensive stance against ranged, damage buff, and movement speed increase. There's not really a lot to say here other than they look really cool, and having the campaign interact with the battle in more ways is never a bad idea. I did wonder if this would replace something like casters, but they mentioned a little later that casters are coming later, and of course Monster Bound was all too happy to let me know in just under 8,000 words why they do in fact have casters in 40k, even if they are a little more wacky. Now for one that will either be one of the greatest changes of the lot, or the thing that breaks balance entirely, and that's single entities. In Warhammer 3, single entities like tanks and giants are okay in the right circumstances, but they can rarely carry your army completely. Even lords and heroes, while strong, don't always get to the point where they can take on entire units totally alone no problem. It seems like in 40k that will change, with single entities like elite tanks being extremely strong and honestly just as powerful as they should be. The tanks they showed off could easily take on several units totally alone without even really taking much damage. This combined with their sweeping shots will make these heavily armoured single entities real powerhouses of your armies. They will be able to take down weak units no problem, and will require specialist anti-heavy units to take them down in any reasonable amount of time. Lords and heroes will now also be split between single entities for the largest most powerful options, and bodyguard units for the rest, which is more similar to a traditional Total War game. I have to imagine that these can be enhanced as the game goes on, with different bodyguard loadouts and looking similar to mounts in Warhammer 3. So maybe you start off with basic infantry and then they get more powerful weapons, then they can upgrade to a tank once they gain enough XP. And worry not, leaders in bodyguard units will actually have improved stats compared to the rest of the unit. This will make it a lot harder for them to be randomly killed, which can so often happen with the bodyguard system. I personally love both of these changes, as I believe that single entities should be some of the most powerful units in the game. Allowing tanks to feel like major threats that require tactics and firepower to take down is a great change, and equally allowing them to really rack up the value makes them feel like a suitable reward after all the time and money invested in getting them in your army. Our last mechanical change is the addition of strafing. Units will now be able to move and shoot in any direction, but this does come with some caveats. First of all, choosing this option will cause a reduction in both speed and efficacy that varies depending on the unit. Lowly missile infantry will be inaccurate and slow whilst retreating, but elite tanks will simply put in reverse and fire as normal. You can do this whilst moving in any direction, so it makes repositioning a lot more enticing since you don't have to sacrifice all of your firepower just to get a better firing angle. They're really putting a focus on positioning for battles in 40k, so this change will be a major step in making that feel a lot more fluid. This one is only touched on briefly as almost a throwaway comment, but they mentioned we'll be able to customize unit appearance. Whether this is a full-on army painter or just choosing from a few different preset paint jobs for the different sub-factions in 40k is not clear, but personally, I really want an army painter. I'm not even that big of a mini girly, but just being able to have my own custom paint job on my troops is just so much fun and does a lot of work to make them feel like my units rather than just some units that I'm using. And lastly, this is also very briefly mentioned, but there will be no Blood DLC and Blood will be baked directly into the base game. Honestly, long time coming, and probably because 40k is so grim that the age rating would have been nuked either way, so a great choice, and I hope Blood and Assaulted Gore is kept a little more controlled as the Warhammer implementation is a little bit over the top sometimes. There are some extremely powerful changes coming in Total War Warhammer 40k, but if you want to know about the most powerful mechanics currently in Warhammer 3, then check out this video for the top 10.